So women have already been experiencing combat to some degree in Iraq and Afghanistan. So what difference does this announcement make?
Well, over the last 10 years, women have served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Over 140 have died, and tens of thousands have come back with wounds of war. This announcement is huge. It's historic because many of those women have not been recognized for their combat duty. They've had trouble getting VA benefits. They've had trouble accessing awards. In many cases, they just simply can't progress in their careers because combat exclusion policy has prevented them from being assigned to a whole variety of units that would have helped their careers progress further.
Well, that's one of the things people have been saying is that, there's only one female four-star general right now. And so some people say that it is hard to advance in the military if you can't officially serve in combat.
Absolutely. There have only been 2 4-star women generals in the entire history of the U.S. military, and so there's an enormous brass ceiling in terms of women's advancement in all of the branches, but it's been particularly difficult in the Army and the Marine Corps, where about 1/3 of positions are off limits to women. And so this means that not only can women be infantry or special operators or in armored units, but they also can't be assigned at the staff level jobs in many of these units. So regardless of what your military occupational specialty is, this policy has had an overwhelmingly detrimental effect on women's careers.
Now, you're a former Marine. What does this decision mean to you? I mean, were there positions you wanted you couldn't go after?
Absolutely. I got out of the Marine Corps after 5 years of really trying to push the envelope and access assignments and jobs that simply weren't available for me. I got out because of combat exclusion and also the sexual harassment that comes hand in hand with that policy. You're simply not treated the same with a policy like this, which legalizes discrimination. And not only do we need to lift the policy, which is a great sign of good things to come, but we also need to ensure that more women are recruited into the military.
Another contemporary economic myth is that women make 75 cents for every dollar men make because they're discriminated against in labor markets. Like other myths, this does have a kernel of truth to it. So for example, if you add up all the incomes of women and divide by the number of women in the labor force, and then do the same thing for men, what you'll find is on average, women do make about 75% of what men do. What's happening here is not discrimination in the labor market, but differences in the choices that men and women make about investing in their knowledge, their education, their skills, and their job experience that lead to them getting paid different salaries. Economists talk about people's human capital. And by human capital, we mean the knowledge, the skills, the education, and the job experience that people have. And economics argues that people get paid wages according to that human capital. It turns out that men and women invest very differently in their human capital. And we can see that in 4 different ways. First of all, educational choices. Men, for example, tend to go into fields like engineering. Women tend to go into social sciences, into psychology, into nursing. And so where men are making higher salaries as engineers or perhaps in the business world, women tend to end up in jobs for which their salaries are somewhat lower. So even though they may have the same years of schooling, the different choices they've made about their majors lead to them working in different areas and getting paid differently.
We like to call the 50s the simpler times. Romanticizing the past is fun and all, but if you look at some of the ideas of the time, the 50s may be better off referred to as the simple-minded times. Gender roles, for example, were extremely limiting. Men were claimed as the alphas. They made the decisions, they went to college, they ran the businesses, they brought home the bacon. Meanwhile, women were handed the submissive end of the stick, being expected to stay home, cook, clean, and watch the children. Their highest option for education was attending finishing school, and even then, marriage was still pushed onto them to be their one true aspiration. Women who wanted more for themselves were claimed to be crazy. Perhaps not the wisest thing to say to those who handled the household knives. Jumping to today's time, women have more options than ever. College is not only available for everyone now, it's insisted. Women can hold jobs of high power and can have further aspirations than motherhood or wifely duties. In fact, many households are now dual income as women branch out into the workforce.